often they distort their own faiths as badly as they distort Islam. Sometimes I'm even tempted to think that most evangelical Christians only ever read one book of the Bible, and that's the last one, Revelation, with its apocalyptic nightmares. Just as you could imagine that most Islamist extremists seem to know only one surah of the Quran, repentance, with the sword verses, so-called. An Orientalist misnomer, of course, right there, since the word sword never appears. And they have no idea of the historical circumstances of this surah, of its context, its frame of reference. Whoops. And so we come back to the highlighter version. Let's look, for instance, at this verse. When God delivers the city into your hands, you shall smite every male with the edge of your sword. You shall save alive nothing that breathes, but shall surely destroy them all. I haven't got it wrong. If this doesn't sound too familiar, that's because it is in fact one of the many peace-loving passages from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 20, which continues to drive home the point. You shall save alive nothing that breathes, but you shall surely destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites, the Hivites and the Jebusites. That's a lot of people. And this isn't the only kill them all order in the Bible. There's plenty more in Judges and Samuel, just for a start. Look up the word destroy in a biblical concordance and you'll find one of the longest lists it offers. The entry for peace is barely a quarter as long. On the other hand, we have these passages, all of which sound very familiar to Christians, even if they can't quite place them. Do not let hatred lead you away from justice. If anyone kills a person, it is as if they have killed all humanity. If they save a life, it is as if they have saved the lives of all humanity. An eye for an eye was formerly prescribed, but if anyone forgives out of mercy and charity, this will serve as atonement for their own bad deeds. Of course, none of these are from the Gospels, though they certainly sound to Christians as though they should be, but from the Quran. So that infamous section in the 9th surah about killing the unbelievers, it does indeed say that, but in a very specific context, the anticipated conquest of Mecca, where fighting was usually forbidden. Just 8 years after the Hijrah, the Muslims of Medina were ready to take Mecca, and Muhammad's followers had asked him for guidance as to what to do if they came under attack near the Kaaba. Could they fight back, and in that case even kill someone on holy ground? The response in the form of a revelation was that yes, this was permitted, but the permission to use violence comes hedged about with qualifiers. Not you must kill unbelievers in Mecca, but you are allowed to, but only after a grace period is over. And only if there is no other pact in place by then. And only if they try to keep you away from the Kaaba. And only if they attack you first, and even then. God is merciful, forgiveness is supreme, and so, essentially, better if you don't. Now, I'm fascinated by this approach of better if you don't, which appears several times in the Quran. What we have here, as I understand it, is a gradualist approach to the radical social changes included in the Prophet's message. It's a recognition that if change is really to take root, it can't be dictated and imposed on people from above, but that they need to be invited into it. So basically, instead of an order, it's an invitation to a better way of doing things, an appeal to the better side of human nature. Yes, if you insist, you may continue in the old ways, but really, Think about it. Consider carefully, and you'll see. Better if you don't. It's a recognition that it takes time for mere humans to adjust to a new way of seeing and being in the world. The same might also be said of a new way of both seeing Islam and being Muslim in America.
Express what salvation is in Islam?
Yes, I will explain.
Tell me.
Salvation in Islam, as the Prophet Muhammad said, is in you, the human being, worshipping the Creator without associating partners unto him. So salvation in Islam is monotheism. So monotheism is your salvation. Paganism, which is to worship the creation that you are involved in, is your condemnation. This is why it is impossible for a Christian to go to paradise, because they worship the creation rather than worshiping the Creator. I understand? So, and even though Jesus himself said you should worship God and God alone, and he said the greatest commandment is to worship God alone. Jesus said, bring my enemies here and kill them in front of me.
Where?
Luke 19 verse 27. Luke 19 verse 27. Find it. Bring my enemies here. He said, all the people who refuse to accept me as their king, bring my enemies all in front of me. You understand? Luke 19 verse 27. And kill them. The problem with the Christians is that we the Muslims know the Bible more than you. You understand?
Read that out of your Bible here, Bishop.
Luke 19
verse 27. Find that.
So when you criticize us about jihad, you trap yourself, because Jesus, he preached jihad.
Read it. Enemies which will not
accept
that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me.
That's right. You did not know that was in the Bible. You don't know the Bible. You don't know the Bible.